Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Andrews. I'm the Business Development Manager for A&B Systems. Welcome to the eTRM webinar. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We're going to talk about how energy efficiency measures can be managed using an electronic technical reference manual. eTRM is a flexible and highly scalable platform designed to capture, manage, and track a complete set of demand-side management and energy efficiency measures prescribed in the state's or region's technical reference manual. As I'm sure you all know, updating energy efficiency measures is a time-consuming activity. And I know energy service providers commonly prepare exhaustive spreadsheets to update all details of each measure manually. The eTRM platform eases measure configuration and acts as a centralized repository for all energy efficiency measure data for all jurisdictions. You can type your questions through the attendee chat window on the left side of your screen at any point during the presentation, and we'll get to the questions during the presentation. Today we're going to talk about the need for an electronic TRM and how the key features of eTRM support best practices. First, we'll cover the information in the slides here, and then we'll finish with a live demonstration of the eTRM platform. Recent studies, such as the California Technical Forum white paper, have identified best practices for the development of TRMs. Transparency and collaboration are the two key factors in achieving improved TRM procedures. eTRM was developed to uphold both of these, transparency and collaboration. Transparency on sources of calculations and measure specification values provided through eTRM establish the credibility of the measure savings values. eTRM promotes a collaborative environment in that it allows for clear definition of roles and responsibilities through a well-streamlined process. This slide illustrates the evolution of energy efficiency through the development of technical reference manuals in the U.S. Since the first TRM was developed by VEIC in 2000, TRMs have become more complex in nature. Few steps have been able to be successful in creating the format that simplifies the process for all TRM users. The digitization of TRMs began in 2007. By 2016, 23 states had adopted TRMs. Today, we're setting out to solve the complexity of energy efficiency calculations using an electronic TRM. eTRM has two user profiles. The first is the consumer side, and the second is the administrator side. First, we're going to discuss the consumer side. eTRM is designed to act as a central repository for all published measures. Various jurisdictions remain independent of each other within the platform. Each jurisdiction has the ability to define its own process in the development of the respective technical reference manual within the platform. eTRM helps to streamline the development process with defined roles and responsibilities at each stage of a predefined process. The screenshot at the top here is the measure catalog. This measure catalog can be accessed by selecting a jurisdiction at the top of the eTRM panel. The second screen shows a view of the measure description. Users can access complete details of any energy efficiency measure in one screen, and this measure is identical to the information published in the respective TRM. eTRM is backed by a powerful calculation engine that has the ability to process algorithms from simple expressions to complex conditional-based algorithms. The engine also supports various mathematical functions depending on the measure parameter. The output from eTRM algorithm can be characterized through configuration. This characterization can be in terms of multi-level categories, unit of measure, and decimal precision. The algorithms can be accessed for redefinition as well. eTRM's combined lookup and conditional statement capabilities allow the definition of utility-specific measure savings and incentives, allowing utilities to use the system uniquely. This is a look at the measure calculation screenshot. The first screen shows the calculation of a measure savings at a single measure instance. The bottom screenshot is a permutation analysis. It shows the measure savings based on various combinations of measure specification values. We're going to take a look at this closer in the demonstration of the platform. eTRM has a library of API services that any third-party system can perform analysis on measure savings. It can be accessed by various roles in the industry: utilities, regulators, implementers, E&B companies, and energy consultants. The platform can be used via API calls from any application or directly embedded into an interface with any system. And we'll take a quick look at that closer. The power of eTRM increases exponentially when it's called from other systems. In the first screenshot here, there's a sample of macro-based Excel sheets that has the ability to communicate with eTRM to get the measure saving results by passing the required parameters through eTRM. The second screenshot is the Encore contractor portal. This portal directly interfaces with eTRM to provide their contractors an incentive tool to perform measure savings and incentive analysis. So to recap, we've looked at 3 features of the consumer side of eTRM. The first feature is eTRM as a repository of TRMs and measures. The second is eTRM's calculation engine. These first 2 features combined allow users to calculate measure savings defined by the published authority. The third feature we discussed is integration. eTRM's calculations can be made through calls from other software, such as your own applications or through a spreadsheet. These features demonstrate the user perspective of the platform, and the next features we'll cover will be on the administrator side of the platform, covering the development of TRM. The measure development process in eTRM starts with the creation of jurisdictions and the population of attributes that form the measure taxonomy. The system supports the creation of common lookup tables and constants, which can be shared by multiple measures across all jurisdictions, or can be shared with a single or a set of selected jurisdictions. This characterization information may differ for each measure based on that measure category or the jurisdiction. To provide flexibility in the selection of components for each measure, eTRM is equipped with the ability to define templates. This definition allows for any number of measure characterization templates by the jurisdiction. Apart from the characterization information, eTRM has an easy-to-use configuration tool to define constant lookups algorithms for measure savings and incentive calculations. Supporting documents and references for measure specifications and saving values can be associated within the measure within the eTRM platform. This provides for transparency to all stakeholders. Here are a couple of measure development screens in eTRM to the central AC measure. This screen shows the selections of measure configurations. And it is important to note that all of the information required to drive the measure savings are contained within the measure. The measure development process within eTRM is designed to promote collaboration amongst TRM developers and stakeholders. This provides a streamlined process for roles that may be defined by the administrator. The workflow feature combined with a role-based control mechanism allows for the definition of various TRM development process by jurisdiction, as well as the definition of corresponding roles and responsibilities at each stage of the development process. System notifications can also be defined at each workflow stage. The final step of the measure development process is to publish the measure data for consumption. This allows interested stakeholders to access the TRM measures and perform various operations like reviewing measure documentation, calculating measure savings, perform multiple measure saving analysis through the eTRM cart feature, compare measures, print the documentation of the measure, and export the measure savings calculation results. And I'll show an example of this in our demonstration. The screenshot at the top of this is a sample of how simple it is to publish a measure. This measure then becomes accessible immediately in the measure catalog illustrated in the screenshot below. We'll take a closer look at the measure catalog in a few minutes. So to recap, we've talked about the administrative features in eTRM that support the development process. Administrators can easily create measures under a defined authority with the support of global references and defined measure templates. eTRM provides a collaborative environment that features configurable workflows, roles, and system notifications. The final step in the administrative perspective is publishing a defined measure that is immediately accessible by the user in the measure catalog. Let's take a look at the platform. Let me share my screen. This is the eTRM dashboard. At the top of the screen here, you'll see the jurisdiction panel where users can select just a few or a set of jurisdictions. You can access the measure cart here. The left-hand side of the screen, there's a list of counts of items uploaded into the system. These icons here are predefined measure categories. These are defined by the administrator. You can take a look at lighting. Again, I have all of 4 jurisdictions selected. You can see the authority here. Frequently accessed measures are listed at the bottom of the screen. And if the user is signed in as administrator, they'll be able to review or view the recently published measures. At the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the navigation panel. And you can access the measure catalog here. As you can see, the measure catalog lists all the published measures in alphabetical order. This lists a brief description of the measure, as well as the measure taxonomy, the authority, the measure category, and the unique measure code as defined by the administrator. We can use the keyword search feature to search for central air conditioner. Each measure has a documentation tab, calculation tab, permutation tab, the comparable measures, and API tab. So the documentation tab lists all of the measure data that's been published by the respective TRM. We've got the measure description, eligibility criteria, baseline condition, measure life, references, and the algorithm here. This measure source takes the user directly to the published measure page within the published technical reference manual. Take a look at the calculation tab. All the measure specifications that drive savings results are listed here. The user can change any of the parameters to calculate their savings. Change the pre-existing size and installed size. And as you can see, the savings are automatically updated in this window here. Let's change this to replace on burnout. Okay. Let's add this to the cart. And once you hit the cart information, it takes you directly to the measure cart where you can review the measure you've selected. Again, the permutation tab allows you to perform a measure analysis on any number of measure specification combinations. The comparable measures tab brings up the measures within the jurisdiction and in multiple jurisdictions related to the measure in interest. The API tab is here. Administrators can copy and paste this code into other systems. Let's take a look at ceiling insulation. Again, documentation tab lists the measure documentation information that is published in the respective TRM. All the measure specifications are listed in the calculation tab. And we can change climate zone, maybe the insulated R values. Again, this is updated. This information is updated automatically here. Change it to electric resistance. Let's add this information to the cart. Again, so the cart lists all of the calculations that the user performs and adds the total annual savings and peak demand savings. Take a look at the permutation. Okay, let's add the climate zone and perhaps an insulated area. Okay. So you can see that the combination 192 permutations were generated. You can export this to a CSV file. So comparable measures that are called up are across jurisdictions. Let's take a look at a commercial measure. Again, the measure source takes you directly to the published TRM. All measure specifications are listed here in the calculation tab. Let's take a look at changing the building type. In the pre-lamp. As you can see, the calculations are automatically updated in this window. Let's add this to the cart. Okay, so inside the cart, you can review the measure calculations here. If you'd like, you can update these as well in the cart. Annual energy savings and peak demand savings are updated here. You can export this into a PDF that can be printed and shared. So this has been an overview of the consumer side of the eTRM platform. As you can see, it's very user-friendly, colorful, very straightforward. So we all understand the complexities behind the management of TRMs. With the launch of eTRM, A&B Systems has sought to provide an environment in which this process can be improved by providing transparency and collaboration. We feel that eTRM knocks down the myth that TRMs are just too complicated to be placed in an electronic format. It is possible to replace exhaustive Excel spreadsheets and reduce the risk of miscalculations by providing a central location for all measure updates. We hope that this webinar on managing energy efficiency measures has been informative for you. If you're interested in exploring the administrative features further in eTRM, please contact me at sarah@anbsystems.com. And we thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Hello, this is Bala. There was one question that came up. It reads, in the create section, you show a calculation engine. Are there some calculations that the engine cannot perform or you do not recommend that it performs? For example, can it interface to other tools like DOE's Airmaster? Some insulation calculations are iterative and very complex. So the response to this is that we expose our APIs. We will be able to consume the APIs that are exposed by other platforms or other software. So we are planning to integrate with many other pieces of software. An example might be the Go Solar California, the PV Watts software, which is the NREL software. And similarly, we can interface to other tools that are out there. I hope that answered the question. The next question is this platform intended to be a measure authoring platform, or does it only translate measures from existing TRMs? And the response is that it is both. We are going to be populating the platform with the various published TRMs so that we have everything in one place and people can compare. It is also being used for authoring the TRMs, in the sense that in the administrative part, you have the ability to set up templates of how a TRM should look, input the information, collaborate with other people in your team or outside the team. The various stakeholders can be can all have access to it and can provide comments into the TRM as it is being developed. And when it is finally agreed to, it can be published and released for consumption.
We're taking additional questions via the attendee chat window. Please stay if you have further questions.
There's one other question that came up. How powerful is the internal calculation engine? When are calculations recommended to be done internally versus externally? The internal calculation engine is actually code that can be written by the analyst who is working on the on developing the algorithms. So it can be extremely complex, several lookups, all kinds of algorithms can be put into it. We have not tested the extent or the powerfulness of the internal calculation engine, but we believe it is highly powerful and can be utilized for almost all the situations. Again, we would be willing to, the people who are interested in looking at the administrative side of the tool, we can set up one-on-one meetings with you and talk to you about it.
Do we have any further questions? Thank you everyone for attending again. We hope to work with you soon in the future.